closing whistle of Manchester City versus Leeds United. And I'm here to tell you all, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I talked a lot on the channel over the last sort of few months about the fact that 5 at the back won't work for Leeds United. You'll be left occupied in midfield. You'll have the full-backs will be a constant problem of the opposition. You'll be completely, as I said, outnumbered in midfield. There'll be loads of issues with a 5 at the back. And I'm here to tell you that in the next game, having watched the second half against Leeds United, I was wrong. I was wrong. Having watched the second half today, that is the best second half of football I have seen from Leeds United so far this season. Comfortably. I thought we were fantastic in a period in the Bournemouth game. I thought we were fantastic in the first half against Everton on the opening game of the season. But I actually think context applied, and when you look at the opposition that we played in them games, the best team we've played so far this season, or the second best team we've played so far this season, obviously Arsenal probably been the best. And in the second half, we're by far the better team playing a 5-back system. And then when I look at sort of the future of this Leeds United and where this Leeds United team needs to go, I think this is what we've got to do now. I think we've got to now go to a 5-back. I think we've got to explore that. Ollie's in the chat. I remember you, Ollie, saying, you've said for weeks as well, to be fair to you, that that's what we've got to do. We've got to go to a 5-back. And I also want to say as well, briefly, I don't know if anyone's watched my match reaction earlier. I just wasn't very pleased with it. I might even delete it, to be honest. I'm sort of toss and turn over deleting it. It's just, I like to sort of provide good content to you guys. That's the whole point of this channel, and try to be as informational as I can. But I don't think I'm very good at instant match reactions. It's not my sort of style. I think this style afterwards, where we can talk sort of genuine, quite after the fact, is probably better. And I watched a few other people in the space, and I just thought they did a better job than me. So I do want to apologise for that. But you know, I get the thing is, when you've come out of a sort of, I'm so invested in Leeds United football matches, it's off the scale. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like. And I finished watching it today, and I had a headache, and I come straight on stream, and I'm like, just straight into it. And sometimes, obviously, that can be an issue. So, but anyway, no excuses, apologies for that. But I don't know if I'm going to carry on doing them going forward, just because don't think it's particularly good content. Ollie says, evening, good at the ending. Wonder what would happen if we played 5-3-2 from minute 1. And I think this will be the conversation that surrounds this performance now, Ollie. Obviously, everyone, like you said, is going to be gutted with the end result, and gutted with the lack. I think not just gutted with the end result of today, and gutted with the fact that we played from minute 1, but also a bit gutted at the fact that maybe we should have seen this earlier in the season. Obviously, we've talked about, as I said, that from now on we need to see this 5-3-2. But when you look at it, and I was thinking this when watching the Everton-Newcastle game, because I put that on afterwards, and I was thinking, what would have happened if Leeds United had started this season in a 5-3-2? What would have happened if when we played at Burnley away, we'd have played with a 5-3-2? Or when we played Forest away with a 5-3-2? And in these away games that we deemed winnable, which they definitely were winnable, what would have happened if Leeds United set up in that? And I think when we talk about sort of where I've potentially got stuff wrong, maybe, look, I think part of this as well is we don't want to go overreactive. This is a 45-minute performance in the case of the whole season. But, so I don't want to go over the top. And I think part of the reason we played so well in the second half is that part of it was that Man City made errors. I also think that Pep Guardiola wasn't quite ready for Leeds United to play 5-3-2, and obviously it took Donnarumma going down to the floor to actually create a situation where he had to change it to sort of try to survive and get through the second half, because they were playing so badly and because they were shocked at Leeds United actually going to a 5-3-2. So I want to bear that in mind when we talk about it. Like, I don't think this is the end solution and we're going to finish 10th playing 5-3-2 is what I'm trying to say. There will be times when actually the 5-3-2 doesn't work, and we've got to look at different systems in different games. It's not like this is, as I said, I don't want to go down the route of this is just the answer and we'd have won every game from the start of the season had we done this. No, that's not what anyone's saying, but that's where I'm going with this. But what I do want to say is, as I said, there has been times this season when we should have done it. But also, not just that, I think when we look at the squad and look where the squad's at this moment in time, in my personal opinion, maybe when you look at the second half on today's showing, do you look at it and go, actually, maybe this squad isn't as bad as we thought? Like, I've been really I don't think I've been horrific in terms of describing this squad. I've maintained that this is the 3rd worst squad in the division. That's where I see it as, and I still sort of believe that. The only thing I will say is I think this is the 3rd worst team in the league based on how good it is on the ball. So if you've got the ball at your foot, how good are Leeds United on the ball in them scenarios? I think we're the 3rd worst. But what I don't say when I incorporate this is how good Leeds United are in a physical standpoint, how good Leeds United are in the duel, and can we play into the physical side of the game to get the best out of this team? And this is something we've called about on this channel for weeks now, because although we obviously changed to a 5-3-2 today, and we went to the 5 back, and it obviously was effective, it's not just about going to the 5-3-2. It's what that encompasses and what we did in the 5-3-2 that made it so special and brought out that second half performance that we saw from Leeds United today. It was the fact that when we played the 5-3-2, we went long. We didn't try play through the lines. I think in a 5-3-2, if Leeds United tried play through the lines and tried to play like we did away at Forest, earlier in the season, a few games ago, we'd have still been uncut, and I still think we'd have been picked off, and I think we'd have been smashed. So it's not just the formation, it's the way you play the formation. And the other thing we saw in the second half wasn't just going long and utilising Calvert-Lewin, because I think when we did that, Calvert-Lewin was fantastic at bringing people into play, winning the duels, winning against Diaz, winning against Gvardiol. I thought he bullied them, as did Demetra. But what we also saw in that second half, in my personal opinion, was we saw a really, really well-organised, structured press from Leeds United. All the way through the game. All the way through the game, we saw that. All the way through the second half, we saw that. We saw, as I said, aggressive in the press. And we didn't see that in the first half. We didn't see that at Forest. We didn't see that of any of the last sort of away games. But we did see that in the second half. And again, as I said, it wasn't just about the 5-3-2. It was about the way we implement the 5-3-2, what we did. And we went away from Daniel Farke's stubborn structure of playing through the lines and not doing a proper press away from home. And we went to the complete opposite, going long and pressing them in. And as I said, it was so effective. And we did. The best way to describe that second half from Leeds United is we bullied them in that second half. That was the best thing that we did in the second half. Anyway, let's get into some of you guys' comments. 1-0 Fulham, not great. Exactly. And again, in the 1-0 Fulham game, had we played a 5-3-2, do we lose that? Neil Davidson says, well, I was shocked today. Even though I thought we lost, apart from Perry, I was happy. Well, I was shocked today, even though we lost. Apart from Perry, I was happy. Yeah, no, I agree. As I said, I was shocked. I honestly, mate, when it got to half time, I had a whole structure built up for what the show was going to be about. In fact, if I'm being honest with you all, what I saw in that first half was just like baffling to me. I was just like, what are we doing? It almost reminds me of Arsenal. And obviously in the Arsenal game, we were 2-0 down at half-time and we ended up collapsing and losing the game 5-0. So I was all ready for that to happen again, if I'm being totally honest. And I actually think when Man City get going, potentially they can pick you off more than an Arsenal can. And as I said, I was all ready for that. I'd even titled the Twitter stream, because we stream on Twitter when we do these. I'd even timed the Twitter stream, time to sack Farke. And I was ready to go in on it because it was just ridiculous the way we were playing again. But then he obviously switched it up in the second half and it becomes a completely different story. And I'm just there thinking like, wow, this is just not quite what I expected. And as I said, it obviously goes to show that I get a lot of things wrong, which we obviously, you guys, I'm sure that I do. But I just didn't, as you said, Neil, I just didn't see it going that way at all. And as I said, and I actually couldn't believe, there was a point in the second half where we made it 2-2. And obviously when it goes 2-2, I'm thinking at that point in the game, right, we're now going to be sat in, they're going to be flying at us, they're going to have all the possession, we're going to be sat in a low block soaking it up. And I was all ready to see that. And then it gets to about the 87th minute, 88th minute, just before they scored actually, and we've got them penned in their half, pressing, pushing for the third goal. And I'm thinking, I almost can't believe what I'm watching this moment in time. We've got them, we're drawing, and we've got them penned in, and we're the ones that look like we're going to get the third goal. And I was just like starstruck at what I was seeing. I actually genuinely didn't believe we were playing that well at that moment. I was like, this is just ridiculous. And I turned to my brother and went, what have they took at half time to put a performance like this out? It's just magnificent. And I said, almost the best thing about it was the fact that we actually got level. And we were happy with that. We carried on pushing and pushing and pushing, which is why it was so disappointing, obviously, when we give the goal up. But as I said, it really does give a structure and a framework of what Leeds United actually can take from this game for the positives and move into games going forward. Tom says, Gruev was the unsung hero today. He was, mate. Gruev was really good today. In fact, I think there's a special mention for all the midfielders. I thought Tanaka was probably the pick of the bunch. I thought Tanaka was just sensational today. Everything Tanaka did was just truly fantastic, in my opinion. Off the ball, on the ball, he was brilliant. Do you remember how many times in that second half, by the way, Tanaka covered Bogle on that left-hand side and stopped Doku getting anything when Doku was torn defensive parts all season, but he didn't have any joy because we doubled up on him and basically had Bogle, who was the man if Doku was going to hit the byline, and you had Tanaka of the man so he couldn't cut back in. And it just worked perfectly, and we completely neutralised Doku, especially in the second half on the right hand side. So he was fantastic. But as you said, I thought Gruev played really well today as well. I thought it was fantastic. As I said, it makes it interesting when we talk about what a new manager could do. maybe this is what we learn from this. The learn isn't that actually Daniel Farke can adapt now and Daniel Farke should be the man to take it forward. But maybe we learn that actually with a different manager who plays a different philosophy, who plays a philosophy that would suit this team and goes with a more physical approach, and maybe is by trade a more 5-back manager or a 3-back manager, maybe you'd see an even better improvement by someone who actually that's his system. Like Farke by trade, like if you look at sort of Farke's principles as manager, Farke is someone who's a 4-2-3-1 by trade, and he likes to build out from the back and play possession-based football with short passing to build all the way through to the front men. That's what we saw in the Championship. That's what we've seen a lot of times this season. But actually, I don't think we've recruited for a structure doing that. We've recruited for more physical presence. And are we better turning to a manager at this point and going, right, we're better with a manager who can get the best out of these physical attributes in players and understand the profiles of these players in the squad to basically get the best out of the squad. And I wonder if that is one of the learnings of today. Like, it's all good talking about as he changed it and he tweaked it and it worked second half. But could we go even further with this style under a different manager? And I think that's the massive interesting thing at this moment in time. Matt says agreed. He played well. Ollie on Tour says Spurs no good so far tonight. Hoping we can get one. We can get Frank when he's inevitably sacked. 2-0 down to Fulham on 7 minutes. Are they actually 2-0 down, mate? Wow, that is crazy. You mean not playing Aronson was a positive? Thank God, Perry. We paid 16 million for him and he was abysmal, says Neil. Yeah, we'll talk about two things in that. That's a really good point. And I can't believe, by the way, Fulham are 2-0 down. That is shocking. Is that actually true? Let me check on my sofa score. Wow, they are. Harry Wilson's just scored again. Typical. Told you we should have bought him. But yeah, no, not playing Aronson was a positive, and I think did that give it a boost. But I think when we look at the way we played, we don't want to play with wingers, do we? We want to play. I think when you're looking at the best thing going forward for Leeds United, it is Nemecha and DCL. And I think actually having both of them up front, it got the best out of them, because when we go long and you play with one up front, it becomes such an isolated role. But not just that, battling the two centre-halves constantly with just one up front is really tiring when you're going long constantly. Whereas actually what you saw in the second half was sometimes Nemecha would jump for the ball, sometimes it'd be DCL jumping for the ball, and they sort of could play off each other and not have to battle constantly with the centre-half, and they could take the burden off each other sometimes by him going for the ball one time and him going for the other. And I think that balance works really well, and that's what I want to see moving forward. I actually, unfortunately, don't think he's going to do it. But that's what worked for me so well. And actually, when you look at the structure of the 5-3-2 and what worked in the 5-3-2, there's loads of things that worked massively, which I didn't really consider. I think the wing backs I always thought would suit a 5-back system really well, and I thought Bogle was really, really good in a 5-back system. It allowed him to advance when it came, and I also thought it helped him defensively when you could get Tanaka to come across. So I thought Bogle was definitely a standout in a 5-back. I also thought Gudmundsson looked much better. I actually thought as well Gudmundsson looks miles better in a 5-back than Justin does, because when they're off in the width, you can't have a right foot on the left-hand side. So I didn't understand that decision. But Gudmundsson looked really good as well. I also, as I said, I thought Nemecha and DCL got the best out of it. And actually, I thought we looked so much more defensively assured too with the 3 centre-backs, because what it allows you to do is, I thought Bijol was miles better. And when we look at where Bijol struggled this season, for me, the main thing he struggled at is he's going into midfield to try win the ball back too quickly, and he's been too eager to go into midfield and too aggressive. But actually, when you're playing with 3 at the back, you can actually afford all your centre-backs to be really aggressive, because if one goes into midfield, you've still got the 2 centre-backs still there, ready to go. So you actually can afford centre-backs to jump. And I think when you've looked at Bijol, when he plays best so far this season, it's been at Slovenia in the back 3, when he's allowed to jump, because they've obviously got them 2 recovery centre-halves. And the other thing you get with the 5-back as well is, when you've got the 2 outside centre-backs, they can actually go wider, and they both play wider. And it means that channel ball that we keep conceding goals to. We conceded a goal against Marlon, against Villa, where he got down that channel and put the ball back. That channel in between the left centre-back and the left-back has been a total problem for Leeds United, that zone. In fact, I'll get it up, actually. We'll get it up so you understand what I mean by this. So let's get it up here. So when we played this system, this is how we set up in the second half. You had Nemecha and Calvert-Lewin up top, and you had your 3 midfielders. But what I'm talking about this channel ball is, we've conceded so many goals when you play a 2 at the back. In this ball here, this channel ball between Gudmundsson and Bijol, or Gudmundsson and Struijk, has been a nightmare. Just think of Marlon cutting it back from this position, and then obviously Rodgers scoring at the near post here. And then today again, you saw a cutback here from Nunes in this exact box here. into Foden for the first goal. But actually, when you've got 3 centre-backs, that channel is no longer a problem because it's Struik's position now. And if they go the inside inverted run on Gudmundsson, Struijk is there to sweep it up. And vice versa on this side, Rodon is in this channel to sweep up. And I think it suits them. And I actually think, to be honest with you, when you look at the characteristics of them 2 centre-backs in general, Rodon and Struijk, I think they suit a 5-back more. They're both, I think what you need in the outside centre-backs is someone that are really quick and quite aggressive, but also very good on the ball. And I look at the attributes of Struijk especially. He, for me, suits this left centre-back role down to a ground. Like, do you remember when he played quite well for Leeds United on a left-back role? So actually, this sort of left centre-back, where it's almost a little bit of a left-back role, a sort of inside left-back, and also a centre-back role, just so Struijk down to the ground. And you're allowed to get his great passing as well, and he can also bring the ball out. Because again, if he brings the ball out into midfield, you've still got your 2 centre-backs here. So as I said, in every regard for the defence, it just, this back 3 works. And as I said, when you saw it in full detail, and when we talk about jumping like we did earlier as well, say Haaland's got the ball here. Bijol, usually one of his issues so far this season is he jumps here, and then Silva in this pocket, which he'd normally be. When Bijol then jumps, he loses Haaland here. Haaland wins the pass, passes it into Silva, and then he's in because Bijol's out of position, and there's all this space here. But actually, when you've got the back 3 again, when he jumps here, Struijk comes across, Rodon comes across, and therefore that you can't get through anymore through the middle. So as I said, it has been that this works for all of the defence, in my opinion. Gets the best out of Gudmundsson, gets the best out of Bogle. I don't think it's bad for Rodon, although he's been fine in both systems, in truth. Struijk, I think it's better for, and it's definitely better for Bijol. So yeah, I think it really worked. And as I said, I got the best out of Calvert-Lewin and Nemecha when they were winning headers up against Gvardiol and Diaz here in such great manners. So as I said, I think this is a system moving forward. I really do. And as I said, the only thing that I'm slightly worried about, and I don't know if you guys think this as well, are we all a bit worried, by the way, that he's just going to go back to old and go back to this sort of this 4-3-3 system against Chelsea? Like, I'm really worried that he's going to do that. And I think if he did go back to a back 4 and it didn't work against Chelsea, I think we'd all be absolutely screaming at the telly. I know I definitely would. Only issue with a 5-3-2 is, what do you do with all the wingers on the bench? You just use them as impact subs, because actually, I'll get it back up again. But if you go back to if you go to the system here, and you've got and you're playing with a 5 back, what you actually can do is, which we saw today, is Calvert-Lewin can stay on, or Nemecha can stay on, and you actually can take off one of the strikers, and you can actually bring on, let's go find him, an Okafor, like we saw in the game. And actually, I think this as a front 2 is not so bad either. I think this could work. Okafor's played up front before. Calvert-Lewin is really good in this system. And I think, again, Okafor, it allows, because when we win the header, usually in a 4, this is another thing as well. When we usually win a header in the traditional 4-3-3 that we play, Calvert-Lewin's got no one to head the ball down to. But when he's got someone up there with him, Okafor's in a much better position to pick up the second ball from when Calvert-Lewin wins the header, which is, again, when Leeds United have been at the best. So, as I said, Okafor can operate in this pocket. I think it's a bit of a problem for Dan James and Gnonto, but again, that's just how it's going to be. And I don't think they're 2 fantastic players in the Premier League anyway, so I don't think we need to really get them in the team, and being totally honest anyway. I mean, we've talked on this channel repeatedly about the fact, if we're being honest, that actually our wingers aren't good enough. So if our wingers aren't good enough, we'll maybe play a system that doesn't use the wingers, if we're being honest. Let's have a look at some of these. Hi, it did look good, but it's early days to say that's our thing. Let's say we're after 5 or 6 games of it. Was promising though, and sure we want to see it again. No, I completely agree, Scooby, and that's something I actually said in the video. I said, look, we actually have only played 45 minutes of this, but I think you'll agree as well that we've got to see that system from now on. But as I said, I don't want to I think we caught Man City by surprise a bit with playing that system. I don't think they expected it, and I think they didn't. I don't think Pep Guardiola found a way to neutralise it, which I think going into the next game, I think Chelsea will look at that and Maresca will analyse it and go, what did Leeds United do so well in that? We need to be ready in case they do that in this game. So as I said, I think we need to see more of it, is my opinion, before we make a full-on judgment. But if we go into the Chelsea game, put in a really good performance, again, in a 5-3-2, if we do play that system, which we should do, then I think we can start to have a conversation. Tom says, Ollie Pandora can play and Gnonto in the Is he talking to somebody else? Anyway, Okafor, not Pandora. Okay, Okafor can play in the 9 and Nonto can play in the 10 in and around the strike. Yeah, I agree. Didn't get why he took Tanaka off. Maybe I'm missing something with that. Just saying. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the Tanaka thing, I'm not sure on it. I'm not sure. To be honest, I thought Tanaka was brilliant, and he did manage to get his Aronson on the pitch, his favourite boy, didn't he? So I don't know why that was. Jonathan says, played with heart, passionate, and a proper tactical setup to get the best out of the recruits. Well done, Farke, for changing the system. It just works for us. Yeah, I agree, Jonathan. As I said, one of the things that frustrated me on my match reaction, I must admit, is I still had people in the comments saying Farke doesn't deserve any credit for what he did. And look, and they said, look, he lost 5 of his last 6 games, and he didn't, and sort of why are you giving him credit? Which I get. And I understand that. And he has been terrible for weeks in terms of his tactical management. And we've talked about it on this channel basically daily about the tweaks that he's made. But when he does do well, I think, as you said, Jonathan, I do think we've got to give him credit. Because even if I was Daniel Farke out, which you guys know I'm not just yet, but even if I was Daniel Farke out, if someone does well, I'm still going to give them credit in the same way that if Brendan Aronson plays well for Leeds United, even though I don't think he should be in the team, we will go on here and give him credit because we want the best for Leeds United. We want these people proving us wrong. We don't want them proving us right. That's not what we want, especially when we're saying negative things. If we're saying positive stuff, then obviously we want to be proved right. But as you said, I want to be proved wrong. Neil Davidson says, playing 5 at the back does not work for me. I could be wrong, but I give a good 4-4-2 a day. Any day, fella. Yeah, maybe the 4-4-2 could be an interesting one. But as I said, when I talked about these channel balls, like we mentioned, you know that, as I said, between Gudmundsson and where we've conceded a lot of goals, between Gudmundsson and Bijol or Gudmundsson and Struijk, that little channel, you don't block that with a 4-4-2. So I think that's an issue. Part of me wants to see a 4-5-1 against Chelsea. 2 last wingers on the counter can't really affect them. Shown by Sunderland. Yeah, but the only issue with that is I think the midfield 3 worked really well, Ollie. I liked the balance of midfield 3. And the midfield 3 allowed us to much better stop their wingers because it allowed Tanaka to get over to Doku and stop that inside run so he couldn't cut inside because obviously Tanaka was stood there and it made Doku massively ineffective, which I don't think you'll fully see in a 5-4-1 personally. By the way, I'm starting to think Nonto is better than Okafor. Potentially, mate. I don't think Okafor's done a bit for a few weeks now. But also, Okafor, the thing with Okafor is, mate, is that because of the way he plays and how direct he is and how much he sort of takes risks in his game, I think sometimes you'll see performances, maybe for a few weeks, where he doesn't look effective at all. And then other games, it completely comes off for him and actually you look at it and go, wow, what a performance that was from Okafor. Jonathan says, please keep the 5-3-2, otherwise people were demanding for your head again. Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree, Jonathan. We've got if he goes back to it, mate, it'll make it. If he goes back to the 4-3-3 and he doesn't pick that result up against Chelsea and doesn't get a positive result against Chelsea, there's gonna be some serious conversations going on. Sebastian says, playing at home is also making a difference. Let's hope 5-3-2 is working. Yeah, no, I agree. And of course, it's a little bit. Of course, it's a little bit late to switch to 5-3-2, which you should expect already against Arsenal in the second match. Yeah, no, as you said, Sebastian, there's an obvious thing to mention there with Daniel Farke that he's waited too long to make the change. I do not disagree with you. And part of me thinks the reason he made the change, and being totally honest, was he knew his job was going down the pan, and he thought, maybe everyone was right. Let's try this formation that everyone's been talking about, and let's throw 2 up front, and let's play a really physical game, and let's see if it works. And because there was nothing to lose, was there? 2-0 down away at Man City. We're going to get, in that old system, let's be honest, we would have been beat 4 or 5, in my personal opinion. It would have just got worse in the second half. So let's just throw a Hail Mary, let's throw 2 up front, let's play this physical game, and let's see what happens. And worst case scenario, we still get battered 5-0 in it, and we can say, well, look, I tried to change it, it didn't work. But now it has worked. I think you've got to go for it. But as you said, it's come far too late. He should have gone to it. He should have gone to it in the Arsenal match. In fact, if I take you all the way back to I think I did a preview for the Arsenal match, or if I didn't, I talked about a 5-3-2 going into that Arsenal game. In that game, I said we should have played Calvert-Lewin, I think, and Okafor as a front 2. But I did talk about it. Look at it this way. We won the second half 2-1. We did, Ollie. And I nearly mentioned that in my reaction, but I thought, no, probably not the time, because people are still frustrated that we've lost the game and we've just conceded a last-minute goal. But finally, for the first time in 5 games, and for the first time since the start of the season, we did win a second half. The only issue slightly is we still lost game. Neil Davison says, I am not Farke out yet. He knows the players, especially his love child. So bringing in a dinosaur like Rodgers or Postecoglou, who knows, won't help, pal. No, I agree. I'm not quite there yet. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I'm ever there. Because one thing we will get with Postecoglou is it'll be back to a back four, and it'll be gung ho football where we just concede shed loads of goals. So I don't really want Postecoglou at all. If I'm being totally honest, I don't think that's the right thing. Rodgers can do a 5-back, but notoriously he's really poor at setting up a defence. So I don't think potentially at some point Farke might not be the answer, and we're going to have to move on manager. I think a lot of you still would, but if we are going to move a manager on, please don't let it be Brendan Rodgers or Ange Postecoglou. Otherwise, I will be probably wanting to put my head in a toilet, if I'm being honest. And I think by the sound of it, you probably would be as well, Neil. But yeah, let's see if there's any more comments. Otherwise, we will wrap it up there. But to be honest, I've much preferred this show. I just seem to prefer these sort of closing whistle shows to the instant match reactions. As I said, I'm honestly borderline. I'm borderline deciding to scrap the instant match reactions. One, I don't think they're very good content because you don't get enough analysis. And two, I don't think I'm that good at them. Maybe it's just, bear in mind, I've only done a few of them, so maybe I'm not that. Maybe I need to learn. But yeah, I think it's tricky, to be honest. Fulham all over Spurs here. Spurs look a mess defensively. That is crazy, mate. I mean, he might get sacked. He honestly might do. Who scored the first goal? Kenny Tete. Oh. Maybe. My brother, we were talking actually, my brother, after the game. We were on about the Fulham game, and we both thought that Fulham would get something actually at Spurs. I don't want to be that I know it all, but that we did say that. I'm not really surprised. Spurs have got an awful record at home, and also, by the way, is there a suggestion that Thomas Frank isn't even that good? Because we all said Keith Andrews was terrible in the summer, and look at how they're performing now. They're doing really well. And won again today, beating Burnley, of course. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always, because if we're going to talk about Brentford, we probably have done this game to death. But I will see you all later, and we will get a sort of a video out tomorrow. We'll do a stream again at 8 p.m. and we'll talk a bit about Daniel Farke's quotes as well, and sort of what he said going into the game. I know he talked a bit about Donnarumma, so we'll get into all of that, and we'll talk about sort of where we see this Leeds United team going further on, and maybe there's an update about the manager situation. Probably not, but maybe. Anyway, there'll be a new show at 8 p.m. tomorrow, so stick around for that. And I don't even like talking about these two managers. Cheers, mate. See you on the next one. Good show, fella. Thank you very much, mate. Thomas Frank, Ellen Road would be good because he adapts 4-3-3. Yeah, he does. He does. That is true. Anyway, thanks all for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye for now.